Have you ever thought about starting a business? Or if you could actually sell a product successfully? Well, in this podcast, Rochelle and I are breaking down how to start a business. Hey there, I'm Erica, and I'm the creator and host of the Nonstop Podcast, as well as an international purser and flight attendant. Welcome back to my channel, where I release a podcast episode just like this one every week, giving you insights about relationships, careers, wellness, and travel. We talk to experts as well as everyday people so that you can use our life lessons to enhance your lifestyle. Be sure to write a review wherever you're listening to or watching this episode because it helps us find and connect with more people just like you. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for entertainment purposes only. All right, let's get into it. I am here with the beautiful Rochelle, and she is one of our business-owning baddies. All right, Rochelle, go ahead and introduce yourself to the Nonstop family.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rochelle, like she mentioned. I am an owner of two businesses, Creative House Consulting and Desire Skin. I've been in marketing for about 7-ish years, and I've been in the product side for about 2.5. And I'm very excited to dive right in and talk a little bit more about my business and maybe some success stories, some failures, and all of that good stuff.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much. So let's go ahead and get started. So I know you mentioned you have two businesses. So can you explain to us what those businesses actually are in maybe a little bit more detail?
Yeah, for sure. So, Creative House, I do consulting with small businesses typically, but I do also contract with mid-sized to larger companies as well, mostly on the project side of things. I would say my niche has been product-based businesses and construction industry, food, fashion, typically. So it's really a variety of things. I've done social media in the past, but we've actually branched off more to just the strategic side of things. So anywhere from conceptual to helping them implement the idea, that's essentially what I do. But I do work with some really great people that still do social media. So if people kind of need that, then that's also a thing. I also do design and branding. So if you are a startup business and you need help with this idea of how your business should look, but not sure where to get the resources or how to actually execute it, then I'm there to help out the process essentially. So my second business is 2 years old.
Mhm.
2 years old, 2.5 right now. I actually started it when I had a skin disorder myself, and I went to the doctors for it, and the things that they were giving me just simply did not work. And I ended up going to a natural alternative, and it ended up working much better than anything the doctors gave me. And, my family, came to me and was like, yeah, like you should have seen her skin. Like you need to, bottle this up and sell it and all of that stuff. So that's kind of how that came to be. But we've been working with consumers and then also working with like Airbnbs to provide toiletries and things like
Love
that.
that. Love
We've
it.
Yeah, we've also been dabbling in corporate gift boxing. So we're in the midst of a rebrand right now. But yeah, so that's essentially what it is. We sell candles, skincare, body care. We're trying to open up. We, as in me and my sister, we're partners. We're trying to open that up to other avenues as well. But yeah, that's basically what it is.
I love that. Okay, so you were talking about with your beauty line that because you had a skin irritation or disorder is what you called it.
Yes.
That's why you started that business. But what inspired you to start your creative consulting?
You know what? I was working in finance, like I was working in compliance
Mhm.
for a while. And it just was not what I wanted to do, and I was trying to find a way to kind of break out and do like something that's in my industry.
Okay,
And I had already gone to school for marketing. That was, the career path, but
Mhm.
I wasn't getting there fast enough.
Understood. Mhm.
Yeah, and I had some really good mentors. Like I had, like like senior VPs, executives, and all of that. And I just decided, let me try and see if I can get in by myself. instead of going the corporate route. So initially I started with freelancing, and I guess it kind of snowballed because of the demand. And
Love that.
I started, recruiting like people that I knew to help me with projects. And then
Mm-hmm.
it just became, oh, okay, maybe I should actually do some sort of consulting firm or something to that effect. So yeah, it just kind of came from that. I got some really good even corporate gigs just from, which is interesting because people think that like you have to start the corporate side first and
Mm-hmm.
then get into that. But really, I started freelancing, got my name out there, got smaller things, did a little bit of pro bono stuff. And
Yeah.
then eventually, I had really good, I had recruiters calling me like, hey, like, are you free to contract and do this? Right. So yeah,
I love
basically.
that. I love that. Okay. So are these your first businesses, or were they any businesses you've had prior?
So it's funny because Desar Skin was Desar
Ah,
initially,
okay.
which I mean it still kind of is,
Mhm.
but I sold like little bracelets and like it was accessories initially.
Yeah.
But I was doing a lot of drop shipping. And then I moved from drop shipping and then I did like wholesaling. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I just don't feel authentic. Like I don't feel like it's like I can't brand it like it's my own because
Yeah.
I know like I'm not doing it from like start to finish, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I yearned for that creative, I guess the creative process of, building your products.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, you know what? And we were doing well. Like we were selling out all the
Mhm.
time.
Love that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I just took a break and I was like, okay, I need to like actually refocus and like
Yeah.
think about what I want to do. And I took a break for like 2 years and I'm like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. And then, yeah, the whole thing. And mind you, during that time, I think maybe a year before I paused on that side of the business, I started my consulting. So I think also
Mm.
I was also like focusing on that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like I have time to like, because I'm already doing that. So it's okay. And yeah, so I ended up, taking a pause, and then the whole thing happened with like my skin disorder. And that was actually due to stress because I
Okay.
it was
Yeah. I was gonna say your body will let you know one way or the other. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so it was due to stress. And then I ended up saying, okay, let me reset again. And then
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where that business came in as,
Hmm.
that means. But
I
yeah.
love that. Okay. So let's actually turn it a little bit more to the logistics and maybe even marketing. I know you said that was your degree, right? Your major.
Yeah.
So let's actually go into that a little bit. Now, how did you initially find clients? Now, I know with your creative consulting, you said people started calling you, you had recruiters.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the beauty line, how did you do that?
So the beauty line is tricky
Hmm.
because it's such a saturated market, especially now. And I find people had more success during COVID just because everyone was inside.
Inside, yeah.
Yeah, everyone was inside. Everyone kind of had, it is weird, they had more money. Like,
Well, they weren't going out to spend it.
yeah,
So I guess I can see that.
like, yeah, like, I mean, people weren't, yeah, going out and spending as much. So by default, even though there were people that were laid off,
Yeah.
like people still had money, or maybe it was just boredom, right?
Yeah.
Like you're home, okay, let me, shop online. So I feel like
Yeah.
there was a lot more people online back then. So it was tough to start the business because we started it just after
Mm.
lockdown happened and
Yeah.
all that. So we found people through social media, and I hate saying social media because I feel like it's such a typical thing to say, oh, I found it. Yeah. So social media is a thing, but we didn't do it in the conventional way. We did it in the salesy way. So yes, we did a few ads, but I feel like at the stage that we were in, especially at the beginning, ads just didn't make sense
Okay.
because no one knew us, right?
Yeah.
So when you see an ad, like, unless you know the brand, like there has to be something very enticing.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided not to go that route. We did instead to the approach of dealing with business to business versus B2C originally.
Mm-hmm.
Still did because like I said, it was right after the lockdown. So events were starting to pop up and all of that stuff. So we were doing pop-up shops and stuff like that just to kind of get feelers out and understand our clients and all that stuff.
Okay.
But we ended up doing a lot of reach outs. We start with sampling as well, like free samples. So we brought people in through there. We did do ads for the free samples because that we felt was worth at least building the email list
For sure.
through the reach outs, the B2B reach outs, which is I find was more responsive. We got people through there. So their clients became ours or their customers became ours. So there was that. Obviously, friends, family, that's kind of how we started branching out. And then we started also going on different marketplaces. So like Etsy, which I'm not a fan of Etsy personally.
How so? Why not?
Etsy, okay, so Etsy is not for the little people. Which I say this because I have 2 shops on Etsy, right? But Etsy gouges you with fees. So even though it's for the little people, it's not for the little people.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah.
So obviously, because I've been on Etsy for a while, I know how to charge, but you're now overcharging your customer because they have so much fees. So you have to then compensate, which I don't like. So most times I just try to redirect them to the website. Just go on the website and, purchase there. But we've been using Etsy just as a means of like lead generation. Pinterest has been a very big one.
Oh, I can see that with the beauty industry. Yeah, for sure.
I like that a lot more than Instagram or any other platforms because I feel like there's more likely to be converted, I think, at least.
Is it maybe because of the creativity and the sense that you can get all of the images? I know Instagram has images, of course, right? It's videos and pictures. But with Pinterest, I feel like it's just the full aesthetic.
Yeah,
right?
I think that, there's definitely that part. But I also think Pinterest is a lot more crafty and a lot more like community. I think also because it's connected to Google, it's easily searched.
Got it. Yep.
So yeah, I think those are the reasons. So we did that. We also did influencer marketing, which definitely helped as well. So that's kind of what we've done to kind of build on our clientele or our customer base. But yeah.
I like that. So for the reach outs, now how did you decide to target which companies? Because you were talking about going B2B. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's business to business. And B2C would be business to customers or client, right? So how did you find the target audience? I know that you were saying they're businesses, but how did you go about finding them?
Overall, looking at your industry, it's always important to look at what's worked in the past, look at leadership polls. And I don't like to completely look at their marketing strategy and things like that, but looking at like Estee Lauder and all these companies that are they're more leaders than competitors. And looking at what they've done in the past and what type of collaborations they've done, I feel like is important before doing anything.
I love that. Yeah.
And then also understanding where you're at in your business and what you could potentially deliver. And then it's always obviously good to look at, where do you see your business? What does that look like in 5-10 years? And then what kind of values that you want to have instilled in your business, because obviously that affects who you reach out to and the type of collaborations you accept, right? So those were the key things. And then, doing our own market research. So, who would actually like our product based on how it looks, based on the scents that we have, based on all these things. Are we going to make it more health related, or is it a little bit more, just simply wellness and it's not necessarily medical? Doing that research beforehand, understanding our target audience, doing a persona. And then we, based off our aesthetic, based off the things that we thought people would like, we reached out to certain individuals. So our products are typically, so we have a mid-tier and we have a higher tier. And we typically range between, middle class to affluent crowds. So that's been our target audience throughout. And then also, if you have sold things, just looking at who's gravitating to it, and being in certain marketplaces, you get to see the types of people that actually gravitate to your products. And then you can also make that decision whether it is the right direction that you're going, or if it's not, what needs to change and why. And if it's super profitable, maybe you don't even want to change it. But yeah, that's basically it.
I love that. Okay, so now that we found our clients or our customers, right? How do we retain customers?
Ooh, customer service. Customer service is so important, and that's how we started. And especially for a more affluent crowd, they appreciate that over everything. Is how you make them feel. I think everyone really, but there's definitely a standard that you have to convey or bring if you're dealing with, if you want to retain people. So, for example, anything that's sold, typically if you buy a product from Zara, or you buy from a certain retailer, for example, you may get an email saying, hey, thank you so much for your purchase or what have you, but it's an automatic message. It's not anything. For us, we make sure that someone, like an actual person, is messaging you, hey, how are you? How did you feel about the product? It gives that level, like a high touch level of service. And I feel like if you're thinking about retention, that's important. There's always touch points even after the sales. So maybe you have them on social media, or maybe they're still receiving newsletters on a monthly or something to that effect where they don't forget about you. So yeah, that's essentially what we've been trying to do. Customer service, we're still in the midst of working that out. And of course, if your product is good, we do Q&A all the time. So, making sure that your product is actually great, even when they're purchasing, how did they feel about the product? How did they feel about everything? We offer samples also to boost other products, but it's a nice incentive, a nice touch. And I feel like it incentivizes people to come back.
For sure.
Hey, I got a free gift, when I
ooh, I love this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're still in the midst of, like I said, improving all of that. But I think retention is all feelings and how how they feel about your product and all of that good stuff. So yeah.
I love it. I love that. Okay, so let's kind of take it to a next level in the sense of getting the business from an idea to reality, right? So somebody who's out there and they're like, I love how you're talking about this. Okay, now I know how to find clients. Now I know how to keep them, right?
Yeah.
But how to actually get the business from my brain to reality?
It's easy to say, just do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The first thing is to write down what it is, where you want to go, and then what steps you think you'll need to do to get there. So like a work back plan, basically. So, okay, so if this is the end point, what steps were needed to get to that end point, and then writing them down, and then, slowly going through each step and actually executing it. I mean, there's no rocket science to it. It's really just trial and error. And I think people think too much about it and they don't do it. And I think it's because of, fear of failure. And
absolutely,
I'm guilty of it so many times. I say, I'm going to do this thing. And then 2 weeks pass. And then, someone that I told that I was going to do the thing, they're like, so did you do it?
What's up with that thing? Yeah.
Where is it? Yeah. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's really, I think also with that is having the right motivation, right people around you to help you execute those things. But the practical sense of it is literally just, what is a thing, doing as much research, because research gives you confidence, and work back plan. If you want to be practical about it, is creating a work back plan on what steps are needed to get to that final destination, and just executing, giving yourself enough time to executing it, understand that failure is a lesson and it's a success at the end of it.
I love that. So when you're talking about research, right, and kind of figuring out the process, my first thought is to figure out who you would like to emulate, right? What
Mhm.
company, or if you have the similar products,
Mhm.
and then kind of go through and say, okay, so how do I get to that point? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, Target, right? So
Yeah.
how do I, as me, Erica, take this idea of how I can get to be like Target,
Yeah.
and then kind of researching, okay, what steps do I need? Does
Mhm.
Target, how do you franchise after all of this? Like, just
Yeah.
whatever it is, just sort of try to break it down. And I usually try to think about it step by step.
Yeah.
I'm a real simple kind of girl. I need you to give me some steps, right? So I'll
Yes.
just go through and I'll say, okay, first step is this. Let me knock this out. Second step is this. Let me knock this out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what a work back plan really is, right?
Yep.
Like it's just step by step.
Yep.
Get a business plan.
Yes.
Check mark.
100%.
That's
Yep.
it. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
really it's those steps, right? If you want to go into the practicality of things, like there's so many resources online just
100%. Small
simply.
Business
Yeah.
Association.
And
Or,
and I will say, and I think a lot of people, especially that come into business that don't have a business or marketing background or anything like that, the first thing they say is, I'm not going to write a business plan because it doesn't make sense and it's too long. Or if they write it, like some people write it and they throw it down on the floor and that's it. But really your business plan is your guide to
yeah,
your
that's
business.
the base.
So
Yeah.
and it seems such a simple thing, like, oh yeah, obviously. No,
Mhm.
but I've spoken to so many people that I'm like, yeah, do you have a marketing plan? And they're shocked that I even asked them. Or I'm like, do you have a business plan? They're like, oh, kind of. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you need, like, that's
Yeah.
the thing. That is the thing
Yep.
that's gonna help you. Like, so um yeah, write down your business and not like theoretical things. And I think that's how people get tripped up, and that's why they don't think it's very practical. It's
Mm.
very theoretical. Oh, in 1975 my product, something similar of my product came out. Like, no, just that's not what you need to have in there. It's
Yeah.
literally like today's age, what's happening in the world, how is it going to affect your product, what
Mhm.
can you do to bypass that, and then write that into your steps. Like, hey, COVID happened, what does that mean? I have to pivot, I need to go online. Like,
Yep.
things like that. It really starts from that. Like, there's obviously the logistics things that I said, like the doing a business license and all that stuff,
Mhm.
whatever. But like the actual thing is having a business plan or a marketing plan. It doesn't have to be 100 pages. It really
Yeah.
does. It doesn't. It could be 3 pages as
Yep.
long as it's like highlights what needs to happen. This is what my product is. So when people ask you what your product is, you're not like, it's this, I think. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, it's really just that. And literally everything is based off of that. So like
Mhm.
your market research, your target audience, how you write your social media post is based on your target audience. How you know what I mean? Like your industry analysis, every time you look for a customer, you're looking at what the industry standards are or who's
Mhm.
doing something new in your industry or what you should add as a value proposition if it's not in your industry. Like
Yeah.
there are things that,
Mhm.
is based on your business plan. So I think that's the key. Your
Yeah.
business plan and literally an action plan within that or your strategy within it, that's practical and just execute it
Yeah.
literally. Yeah.
I love that. So when it comes to, I know you kind of tapped into it just for a moment,
Yeah.
but like licenses, right? The first thing I
Mhm.
hear of like, oh, I don't know if I need licenses or
Yeah.
permits and things like that. Can you
Yeah.
kind of talk about a little bit of that, just kind of starting out?
You can get away with not having a business license. You can,
Mhm.
but you can't expect people to take you seriously.
There you go.
I always say business plan, license, proper domain name, website.
Mhm.
I have a domain name that's a Gmail, but I also have a business it's under the business name. So
Mhm.
those things, when people see it, and especially on an online platform,
Yeah.
they're looking for every reason why you might be a scam.
Yep.
So you want to make sure you cover every potential sales objection. And those are like very basic ones that you can that's
Knock
it.
off. Yeah.
So I always say, yes, those are the key things. Licensing, it depends. Like I do events. So there's certain licensing that you need to run certain events, depending on
Mhm.
what you're going to have there. And insurance is important depending on what industry you're in.
Mhm.
as well. So if you're doing consulting and if you're dealing with really big companies or even just mid-sized companies, and depending on what type of advice you're giving them, you may want to look at insurance too.
Mhm.
Events, you definitely need insurance, at least for the day, which you can get day insurance. You also, if you're doing product-based business, you may want to get insurance
Yeah.
because of that. Licensing wise, if you're doing food, maybe you need like a food handling license, like those kind of
Mhm.
things. Liquor, like same
Yeah.
situation, right? But everything else, it really just depends on your industry, right? Like, if you're doing construction or plumbing, obviously those things. I
Mhm.
think at like the more professional you get, the more licensing you need, obviously,
Got it.
like
Yeah.
a lawyer and all that stuff. But business license, I would recommend it. You could even start as a sole proprietorship, which is not great because the liability is on you at the end of
Mhm.
it. But if you really just don't have the funds and you're just trying to start something, maybe a sole proprietorship, I would always recommend a corporation or, you know, you could do other things, but I think corporation absorbs you of a little bit more liability than
Mhm.
other stuff. So, and yeah, it's like I think in Canada it's like $100 more or something to that
Oh,
effect.
that's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I think it's worth it for versus potentially, being sued because you don't have certain licensing,
Yep.
or I think would outweigh the cost.
Now, I know you said you were getting started around the time of COVID, right? And
Mhm,
you said you initially had mentors for your first business.
mhm,
So, what other resources, whether it was like a small business association, your mentors,
mhm,
what
mhm.
resources did you have when you were starting your businesses?
There was a wave of gurus that came out during COVID, which I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people know that, but there was a wave, and
Yeah.
there was actually some really decent ones, that weren't too bad, and, oh my gosh, I used some of their courses. I also went through different online certificates. LinkedIn is a good resource. It's not too bad as long as you can. Well, now they're trying to put out a little bit more practical content, but back then it was a little bit more theoretical, so you really had to
Okay.
read between the lines. But yeah, I would say those things. There's workshops that even like these big companies like HubSpot and like
Mhm.
Shopify, they would host. I would always be in one of those workshops. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say those have been the biggest thing. I obviously read blogs and articles as well, but
Mhm.
those have been, I think, the biggest things for me.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, and I think, even up to now, there's a lot more reason, even YouTube,
Mhm.
you go on YouTube and learn everything,
Yeah.
so maybe like fact find, when you do go on it. But yeah, yeah, those are really good spots to kind of hang out.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's say that you had to do this all over again, right?
Yeah.
With the knowledge that you have now, but you had to start the business all over again. Would you
Yeah.
do anything differently? And if so, what is it?
Oh my gosh.
I like that. I like that reaction.
So much. First of all, okay, so for my consulting, I would have started with evergreens, or like they call them like passive income
Mhm.
things initially, which I guess would kind of, so I also sell like templates like for passive income and things like that, right? And most times it's based on my process.
Okay.
But I also have like design templates and websites and all that stuff. So I think I would have started building that out from the start. And I think building a community was a very big thing now, especially. But I wish I had started doing that initially with the consulting. And then for the skincare, I don't think I would do anything differently with the skincare. I do think I could have done a lot more influencer marketing that I didn't do, and start with the branding. So we did branding, but it was more aesthetic branding. It wasn't like, this is our business, and I do see that with a lot of small businesses is they
Mhm.
don't focus on branding first.
Got it.
And that's probably one of the biggest things when people see you or, notice your brand, you want to
Mhm.
make sure that they always remember it, and that's branding, right? So I think that would be that. We did really brand our products initially, like not really brand, but brand it to how much we could have afforded at
For
the
sure.
time.
Hmm.
And I think it wasn't too bad, but definitely which we're doing now is we're putting out like a brand story so that people can actually gravitate to what we do,
Hmm.
and it adds a level of like differentiation. So I think I would have started with that initially and then incorporated that. I think at that point I would have done ads if it was just based on a brand story.
Got
So,
it. So,
yeah.
can you tell some of our listeners and viewers what a brand story is for someone who doesn't know?
Yeah, is your brand story is literally who you are, your brand, so your business,
Hmm.
where you started, where you want to go, why it means anything to you, why it should mean anything to them.
Hmm.
And it's your
Yeah.
founder story. It's the this ingredient started from here and this is why we incorporate it. So
Hmm.
that's kind of like what you would include in your brand story.
I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, so let's talk about you specifically. So, what have you learned about yourself since starting these businesses?
I would say resilience. There's some long nights as a entrepreneur, and I don't know if you've ever seen, but there's a snip of Rihanna. I mean, Rihanna, like, she started out in music and,
Hmm.
her propel to a billionaire may not seem like a big thing, but for a millionaire to get to a billionaire,
Huge.
it
Yeah.
is huge. So I think there was an interview. It was just a quick thing. I think maybe on a red carpet or something. I don't know.
Okay.
And an interviewer was like, you know, so why, so how do you feel about your businesses? And she was like, yeah, you're so lucky to be, where you are, all these things, like essentially the preface of what they were saying. And she was like, yeah. Like you could tell like she was just so tired in her eyes and she was like, yeah, like, I just got to wake up and do it. Like, like that
Yeah.
was her response basically.
Yeah.
And I always think of that because I'm like, unless you're an entrepreneur or like you're in the space of trying to build your passion,
Hmm.
people won't understand like it's a lot of
It's
sacrifice.
not luck.
It's
Yeah. Huh.
a lot of time
Hmm.
and trying to hone into your craft and a lot of rejections
Hmm.
that you have to emotionally just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
push it aside. All right, you didn't want me. It's okay. You know,
Yeah.
there's so much like emotional turmoil that happens as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I feel like yeah, resilience definitely because I did not think I could be battered and beautiful. They'll be like, "Hey,"
Got it. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I love that.
yeah.
So, okay, you know what? I think this actually goes into my next question. What strengths have you developed since starting a business? So, we got resilience. Are there
Yeah.
any other strengths that you've developed?
Ooh, communication.
Love that.
Because how I grew up, I feel like wasn't very conducive for communication. I
Okay.
think as a I'm Jamaican,
Hmm.
so, um, I feel like a lot of especially around my age, kind of understand, you don't talk to your parents certain ways and
Hmm.
so
Speak when spoken to. Yeah.
yeah,
Huh? Hmm.
exactly. So I only started flexing that skill or arm after I got into entrepreneurship
Hmm.
because it really is about building relationships. And if you don't have it, you're not successful at all, which is
Yeah.
sad to say, but that really is it. You have to build relationships and communication. I did not realize it was such a big thing, which is I guess ignorant to say, but I just
Hmm.
really did not know. Yeah, I would say my communication is better.
Okay. Good.
Getting
Good.
there. It's getting there. Communication, I did not know I could put up a reel, these pictures. I would say, like, my photography skills a little bit better
Hey,
now,
yes.
a little bit.
I feel like as a business owner, you actually have to step into a lot of those
Yeah,
roles, right?
yeah,
Especially in the beginning. It's one thing once you get to a certain level and you're like, okay, I can hire this out now. Like, I'm not the greatest, or I don't love to do this. But
yeah,
in the beginning,
yeah,
it's trial and error. You're like, okay, I'm not the
yeah,
greatest photographer, but you have to learn the lighting, right? You have to learn how to get a background. You
yeah,
have to make it look a certain way. The aesthetic we were talking about, especially when it comes to beauty in the
mhm,
beauty industry, I feel like that's a
mhm,
huge thing.
yeah,
So yeah, I totally get that for
yeah,
sure. Well, let's kind of dive into family and friends. I know initially you were talking about it, right? So in these businesses, you work with your sister. You guys are co-founders, right? But do you have any employees, or do you kind of just like grab some family and friends, say, hey, listen,
Yeah.
I need you here. What's up, right?
You know what? So we have 4 people that work with us
Mhm.
just on the key parts of the business.
Okay.
So one that does like customer service slash like the sales, and then another person, she's more of assistant.
Okay.
She kind of is an all-arounder, so she does a little bit of this and that. And then we have 2 designers. We had a content writer like once upon a time, but that chat GPT, so
Baby. That's the big, we're gonna get to that in a second, okay?
yeah, so we have 2 designers. They're on call, so
Okay.
it works well. In the past, we've had people here and there, but the 3 consistent people have been our one designer, and he really just helps with if there is a promotional like pamphlet or something like that that
Mhm.
needs to be done. Like I my background is in a bit of design as well, so typically I guide that process as well. But if I'm busy with other things,
Yeah.
normally he kind of comes on. But I would say him and our 2 assistants have been the most consistent throughout. And my assistant actually helps with our social media
Love
stuff.
it.
So yeah, and and then obviously my sister, she does most of the operation stuff, but sometimes like I was in Jamaica for 2.5 months, so
Mhm.
she had to take on some
Yeah,
of my
she was
roles. And I
taking,
was like,
yeah.
and she's just calling me like, why you leave?
Imma need you to come on back, yeah.
Yes. And then for Creative House, we had 15 people that we were working with, contractors, and then we whittled that down a bit. So we do have the designers that kind of they're multi-purpose, like between the 2 businesses,
Love it.
because most of what I focus on is the consulting and then the branding stuff. That's
Mhm.
kind of what it is, and the social media manager that kind of hops in per project basis. But sometimes I do pull in family though.
Yeah,
Sometimes I do. Like we had
they're up for grabs, let's go.
yeah, we had a pop-up event, and oh my gosh, if it was not for my family, like I don't even know like what would have happened. But
Yeah.
they came out and like it was just organization,
Oh, I
so
love it.
yeah, so and that was 20 vendors that we hosted, just a local
Wow,
pop-up
yeah,
and stuff like
that's
that.
beautiful.
Setting up, organize everything was great.
Okay, so let's kinda go into that for just a second. I know you were just talking about some of the people you have on your team.
Yeah.
When is it time, in your opinion, to hire or to, start contracting?
Hiring, I would say when your business is profitable,
Mhm,
um, I think it makes sense. Contracting, you can do that at any time as long as it makes sense for the vital parts of your business.
mhm,
So, if I like my background's in marketing, but I dabble in everything. Like I do the marketing and I do like the, our cash flow sheets and all that stuff.
mhm,
But realistically, we had to hire an accountant, right?
yeah,
To do the final stuff,
mhm,
right? Just because my knowledge kind of extended to just that, and that was
mhm,
it. Like so I think if there are vital parts of your business that is missing to get you to the next step, I think it's important to hire contractors. When you're at a position where you're trying to, you've reached that hump, right? So like you're a small business, you hire the contractor to get you to the hump.
mhm,
When you're at the hump and you're trying to grow it,
yes,
um or scale it, at that point I think you need to hire people because those people are more invested in your business at that point.
mhm,
And then you teach them about the culture, and you know what I mean, like they
yeah,
don't have 60 other clients that
yeah,
they're working with. Um and so they can help grow the business with you.
I love that.
Yeah, if you hire too early, then you may lose money, and especially if you're starting up, you may not even have the money to hire
Mhm,
anybody. So, and there's so much things that are involved in that. It's like taxing and like, all these liability stuff that comes into hiring someone
yeah,
as part of your business. So you have to be ready for that before you.
actually go up and jump into it, yeah. So let's actually go back just a little bit. Now you mentioned ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So I want to know because, I mean, basically, that's what you're hearing everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So for you specifically, how has ChatGPT started to help or benefit you and your business?
Oh my gosh. Product descriptions. We have a lot of products, okay? We have a lot of products and sometimes it's just hard. And then if you're going to deal with like I've dealt with like really decent like content writers that have been in like, write for Medium, like some big people,
Yeah,
so but it gets expensive.
for sure. Yeah.
And especially for a small business, you have to look at the priorities. Okay, so what do I actually need? Okay, what can possibly throw together?
Yeah.
You know, and Chat GPT, I think, definitely bridged that gap. Where you really don't even have to think too much. You
Mhm.
just
Love that.
enter in a query. That's it. Spits it
Yeah.
out. You make it your own. Little 1, 2 words here and there.
Yep.
um, you definitely have to change it up because I've heard there's a few plagiarism issues in the
Oh,
past.
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say pros and cons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah, but outside of that, it's been lovely. I use it for our social media captions. I use
Mhm.
it for that. I've used it for some parts of the website. I use it for, oh my gosh, blogs. But obviously with blogs, you kind of have to put your own thing so it doesn't
For
look
sure.
sound too robotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been great. It's been great. We use it pretty much everywhere like
Mhm.
that we can.
Yeah. No, I love that. It saves time, it's helpful, it gives
Yeah.
you something that just that's yours, you know? So I
Yes.
totally understand that.
Yeah.
Now let's actually go into I know you were initially talking about the failures and the beauties of business, right? So can you tell us what the most challenging time or moment has been for you with one of your businesses?
I would say, oh my gosh, actually I've hit challenges for both businesses.
Mm,
I
mhm.
think I, Creative House, the consulting business, the challenge was hiring because when you start an agency, I feel like a lot of people don't tell you this, but when you start an agency, it's all people. So
Mhm.
your money is people, your contracts are people,
Yeah.
everything is people.
Yeah.
So because of that, hiring the right people is so crucial.
Mhm.
And I had a really big project and w- they just didn't deliver. I had
Mm.
contractors, they just didn't deliver. I ended up doing it myself. It was just a lot. And it definitely that actually prompted me to niche down further so that I could properly manage things.
Okay.
So because we were a full service agency, that's why we had like 15 different people. And then we were working with like a white label agency as well to
Mhm.
buffer whatever else that came in. Yeah, so I would say that was, hiring the right people, and I think that also goes for overall small businesses because
Mhm.
that could really make or break you. How much money you spend towards that, and then also your client or customer experience could be that could be detrimental
Mhm.
if you hire the wrong people. So there's that. There's also, so with my skincare, I would say finding a good chemist
Mm, okay.
very hard,
Yeah.
and you need a chemist to scale if you're not already one, or it it becomes very expensive if you aren't that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I would say that has been because it was a lot of like all of our products, like we make it ourselves, we come up with with everything, right? So,
Mhm.
having to, yeah, go through trial and error. Okay, this, why didn't the moisturizer work?
Yeah.
Didn't work because the temperature was off, just by like a smidge.
Yeah.
But that was enough to change the color. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would say that was a very tough time because you had to spend money that we did not, we anticipated that we were going to spend money with the products, but we
Mhm.
didn't anticipate that much money because we just the knowledge was not there.
Yeah.
We had to go do courses, and we had to, do all these things and
Yeah.
talk to, actual chemists, and,
Mhm.
bounce ideas with other business owners that are in the industry and things like that. So, yeah, I would say those have been the failures, or like the
Challenging moments there.
challenging moments. Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I do love actually the last part that you did say, investing in courses, whether it be classes or just learning about the business that you're in. Right. So with all the trial and error that we were talking about, you tend to learn something. You're like, okay, so that didn't work. Now let me figure out what I can do
Yeah.
next time, right? Whether it be the mentors or
Mhm.
taking classes. I think that's fantastic. And that's going to lead me into one of my last questions for you.
Yeah.
What has been the most memorable moment or time as a business owner so far?
Memorable moment. I guess I have two. The first one was I was on the cusp of getting a contract with one of, I won't say who it is, but one of Starbucks's supplier.
Mm-hmm.
That was one. The other one was with, so the skincare um was getting, so they're really big subscription box, a vegan subscription box, was their head of procurement saying, our product is really great and we want you in our box,
I
essentially. So
love
I
that.
would say those have been the highlights, because it's validating, right? You're doing something
100%.
right. You're almost there. So I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it builds the confidence and it keeps you going because I
Yeah.
feel like that revives everything. Because as hard as it is to be an entrepreneur, right? And you were talking about the rejection and the
Mhm.
difficult moments, you're like, oh my God, I'm like, I just want a break. Just give me something. And then you get that moment where you're like, actually, I am a baddie, right? I'm a business owning baddie for real, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
Yes.
before you go, what I want to do first is tell what advice would you have for anybody out there who wants to start a business but might be a little hesitant, or someone
Mhm.
who's just getting started and they're like, I'm kind of clueless, but I'm out here. Any advice for them?
I would say do your research, like actually do your research. Um, Use that research.
Yes. If you're going to do it, use it, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
use it. Have people that inspire you and motivate you around you,
I love that.
um, because that can be very difficult. It's like I said, it's very difficult, and when you don't have that, it's easier to quit.
Mhm.
Um, and I would also say, uh, adapt to the situation, adapt to, the space you're in, um, which I think a lot of, like I mentioned before, a lot of people during COVID realized that they have to adapt. And I think that
Absolutely.
is such an important thing for business and a business to grow, because every generation is different. And
Mhm.
when you cycle through a generation, their wants, their needs are going to be different. So you have to make sure that if you want a long lasting business, you have to recognize that and actually, implement strategies to change, because you need to change always and be willing to do it. So
Yeah.
I'd say that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the Next Stop Nonstop podcast. So for anybody who wants to reach out to you or just maybe buy some of the products
Yeah.
because they've heard about you on the Next Stop Nonstop podcast, where can they find you and your businesses?
Yeah. You can find us at Desar Skin. So DSAR Skin. And you can find us on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, or you can go on the website. So it's www.desarskin.com. So it's DSARSKIN.com. And feel free to, if you do shop with us, you can use our promo code, which is next10.
Love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I know they've learned something because I sure have.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. If you have any questions or you want to leave me a voicemail, you can go to anchor.fm/nextstopnonstop/message. I'll also add that link in the description. If you're still rocking with me and you're not already subscribed to the Next Stop Nonstop podcast, what are you waiting for? Don't be shy. Poke that subscribe button so that you don't miss the next episode. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really, really appreciate it. So Until we meet again, I want to wish you healthy minds and happy travels.